Avery Hart stared at the tower and glass doors of Ravencrest Innovations, trying to steady her nerves and summon the version of herself that didn't constantly trip over her own feet metaphorically and literally. Today had to be different. Today, she would not spill coffee on her blouse, not stumble into an awkward situation, and definitely not humiliate herself in front of her future boss. The reflection in the building's sleek surface showed a young woman doing her best impression of a professional. Her seafoam green blouse was crisply ironed, and her long chestnut waves fell in soft curls past her shoulders. She tugged on the hem of her blazer borrowed from her roommate Cassidy for luck and intimidation and took a deep breath. The skyscraper loomed like a shrine to corporate success, a 40-story statement that its founder, the enigmatic and wildly successful billionaire Roman Vance, didn't just play the gammy who wrote the rules. At 33, Roman had built an empire around a revolutionary marketing platform and was now one of the most influential figures in tech. He was also the man whose assistant Avery was here to interview to become. She needed this job badly. Her mountain of student debt wasn't going to magically disappear. And despite graduating with honors in digital marketing, her resume was more potential than experience. This could change everything if she didn't ruin it within the first 5 minutes. That was when the revolving door betrayed her. Avery miscalculated her push, got caught in the momentum, and spun 3 full turns before being unceremoniously launched into the marble lobby like a confused hurricane. Her leather portfolio flew open, and her documents scattered like autumn leaves in a gust of wind. "Oh no, 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 no," she gasped, scrambling to her knees as her precious resume copies fluttered across the glassy floor. A nearby security guard approached, raising a curious brow. Without missing a beat, Avery flashed her best apologetic grin. "I'm not drunk, I promise. Just gravitationally unreliable." The guard chuckled as he bent to help her. "Interview day, exactly," she muttered, stuffing papers back into her folder. "Avery Hart, here for a meeting with Ms. Delgado from HR, 32nd floor. Good luck," the guard said kindly, gesturing toward the elevators. Selma miraculously made it inside the elevator without further catastrophe. She leaned against the coal wall and exhaled deeply. Then she noticed she wasn't alone. A man stood across from her, tall and commanding, dressed in a tailored navy suit that practically whispered power. He was speaking into a phone, voice low and authoritative. "No, reschedule the Zurich meeting. Push it to next Thursday. I need the analytics summary on my desk by 2. Avery shrank slightly into her corner, willing herself invisible. This was clearly a big deal executive, possibly even one of Roman Vance's top strategists. The kind of person who could fire people for breathing too loudly. She clutched her folder tightly and begged the universe not to let her do something ridiculous. That was when the elevator jerked to a sudden, jarring stop between floors. "You've got to be kidding me," the man muttered, ending his call with practiced annoyance. Avery froze. "Oh no, oh no no no. This is bad. I have 5 minutes until my interview. I cannot be late. If I'm late, I don't get the job. And if I don't get the job, I'll have to move back in with my parents. And if I move back in with my parents, my mom will make me join her knitting club. And those women are cutthroat." The man turned, finally noticing her. He was ridiculously handsome, dark hair swept back, chiseled features, and eyes the color of stormy skies. There was a flicker of amusement in his expression. "Breathe," he said calmly. "Panic attacks don't fix elevators." "I can do breathing," Avery replied, taking a dramatic gulp of air. "I'm Avery, by the way. Avery Hart, professional mess, aspiring assistant." He tilted his head, a smile playing at the edges of his mouth. "Professional mess? It's a gift," she said, deadpan. "This morning, I brushed my teeth with acne cream, wore mismatched shoes, and now I'm stuck in an elevator with someone whose wristwatch probably costs more than my student loans." He glanced down at his watch and raised an eyebrow. "I mean, it's Swiss. Classic. Minimalist," she rambled. "And you were talking about Zurich meetings like that's just a normal Tuesday." He actually laughed. "You're very observant. And you smell like cedar and confidence," she blurted before immediately blushing. "Sorry, I have no filter when I'm anxious. My roommate says it's a hazard." The elevator gave a sudden lurch, and with a soft hum, resumed its ascent. "Oh, thank goodness," Avery whispered, clutching her folder to her chest. "Maybe I'll still make it." "What position are you interviewing for?" the man asked as they approached the 30th floor. "Executive assistant to Roman Vance," she replied, eyes bright with hope. "It's a long shot, I know, but I'm organized. I learn fast, and I only panic sometimes." The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. "Well, good luck, Avery Hart," he said, voice low and warm. "Thanks," she called as she hurried out. "And thanks for not judging my complete meltdown." She turned just in time to see the elevator doors close on his enigmatic smile. The reception area of Raven Crest was all gleaming surfaces and designer furniture. It looked like a place where deals worth millions were made over espresso and minimalist art. Avery squared her shoulders and approached the woman at the front desk, who looked like she could spot a misplaced comma at 50 paces. "Avery Hart for Miss Delgado," she said, trying to sound confident. The receptionist barely blinked. "She's expecting you. Conference room B." Avery nodded, smoothed her skirt, and walked with as much grace as she could muster through the modern glass doors. Inside, a poised woman in a crimson blouse looked up from a stack of resumes. "Miss Hart, please take a seat. I'm Teresa Delgado, head of human resources. Thank you so much for the opportunity," Avery replied as she sat promptly knocking over the glass of water placed neatly on a table. It tumbled, splashing across the polished wood surface like a tidal wave of awkwardness. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," she cried, scrambling for napkins and nearly upending her chair in the process. Miss Delgado watched the scene with a surprising amount of calm. "It's all right. Accidents happen. Let's talk about your experience." Despite the disastrous start, Avery managed to find her footing. Over the next 20 minutes, she spoke passionately about her background in digital marketing, her organizational skills, and her obsession with social media strategy. Slowly, Miss Delgado's skeptical expression shifted to one of genuine interest. "Well, Miss Hart, you're clearly very bright," she said, setting down Avery's resume. "And you might just be the breath of fresh air this place needs. However, Mr. Vance insists on personally meeting every assistant candidate before hiring." Avery's heart leapt. "I'd love that. When would I?" "No, actually," Miss Delgado said, standing. "He's waiting in his office." Avery followed her down a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittering in the distance. They stopped before a pair of double doors engraved with Roman Vance, CEO. Miss Delgado knocked and opened the door. "Mr. Vance, this is Avery Hart, the applicant we discussed." Avery stepped inside and froze. Behind the sleek desk sat the man from the elevator, the impossibly polished, cedar confidence-scented man who had watched her unravel only moments earlier. Roman Vance looked up with a slow, unmistakable smile. "Miss Hart," he said, rising and extending a hand. "We meet again." Avery's jaw dropped. You're Roman Vance." "I am," he replied, his handshake warm and firm. "Thank you, Teresa. I'll take it from here." As the door clicked shut behind them, Roman leaned back and regarded her with amused eyes. "So," he said, "professional mess and aspiring assistant. Let's hear those qualifications." Avery's pulse thundered in her ears as she sat across from Roman Vance's massive glass desk, trying not to hyperventilate. The last time she had been this nervous, she'd been skydiving, and that at least had come with a parachute. Roman Vance, billionaire, CEO, elevator companion, and now interviewer, lounged back in his sleek leather chair like he had all the time in the world. He steepled his fingers, studying her like she was a particularly intriguing riddle. "Let's start with the basics," he said. "Why do you want to work at Raven Crest?" Avery swallowed hard. "Well, sir, I've followed Raven Crest innovations since college. Your social media strategy courses were legendary, and your product revolutionized how businesses connect with their audiences. I have a marketing degree, strong organizational skills, and a relentless work ethic. He raised a brow, lips twitching. And you've already proven your ability to handle unconventional situations. Her cheeks flushed. If by unconventional you mean revolving doors and elevator malfunctions, then you seem overqualified. Roman chuckled. You're quick. I like that. Avery relaxed slightly. I also make a mean cup of coffee, color code spreadsheets, and promise I only spill things when I'm under extreme stress, which, admittedly, is frequent. But I'm working on it. Roman leaned forward. What about your marketing background? That was safer ground. Avery straightened her posture and launched into a passionate explanation of digital campaigns, brand voice strategy, and her senior thesis on micro-influencer ecosystems. As she spoke, her anxiety melted away, replaced by excitement. This was what she loved: Adidas, innovation, storytelling. Roman nodded along, occasionally asking sharp, insightful questions that proved he wasn't just listening, was genuinely interested. By the time she finished, she realized she'd been talking for nearly 10 minutes uninterrupted. Roman tapped a pen against his desk. You know, he said, that was one of the most compelling pitches I've heard in a long time. Avery blinked. Really, you've got fire, brains, a bit of chaos, he added with a smirk, which may be exactly what I need. Thank you. He stood and walked around the desk, leaning casually against it, arms crossed. I'd like to offer you the position. Avery froze. Wait, seriously? Seriously? Roman said. But there's a caveat. Her smile wavered. What kind of caveat? He hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable passing through his eyes. Then he exhaled. The job isn't exactly conventional. You said you liked unconventional. True, but this may stretch your definition of the word. Avery tilted her head. Okay, hit me. I need an assistant. Someone sharp, reliable, discreet. That's the job you interviewed for. And you've clearly got what it takes. He paused. But I also need something else. She stared at him, waiting. I need someone who can pretend to be my girlfriend. Avery's jaw dropped. I'm sorry, what? It wouldn't be full-time. Roman added quickly. It's a side element, temporary, a few appearances. Think of it as advanced problem solving. She blinked. Advanced? Are you being serious right now? He nodded, suddenly looking tired. Dead serious. Avery sat back in her chair, trying to process what was clearly a plot line from a romantic comedy. You want to hire me to be your fake girlfriend? Primarily my assistant, he emphasized. The girlfriend part is strategic, tactical. It's to deal with a personal complication. Avery raised a brow. Does this complication have a name? Roman's jaw tightened. Selena DuPont. The name rang a bell, fashion icon, meteor darling, and Roman Vance's very public ex. Avery vaguely remembered a magazine spread about their glamorous breakup 6 months ago. She's been stirring things up, Roman said, showing up uninvited, feeding false stories to the press, spreading rumors to business partners that were reconciling. Last week, she told a Forbes reporter we were discussing marriage. Whoa, Avery said. That's bold. Selena thrives on appearances, on perception. If she thinks I've moved on with someone authentic, it may be enough to stop the nonsense. Avery blinked at him. And your brilliant plan was to hire a new assistant and have her play your fake girlfriend. It's ridiculous, Roman agreed. But you're refreshingly real. You didn't fawn or flatter. You panicked in an elevator and told me I smelled expensive. Avery winced. Yeah, about that. I liked it, he said, smiling. You weren't trying to impress me. You were just you. That's rare in my world. Avery leaned forward. Let me get this straight. You want me to be your assistant plus occasionally hold your hand at a party? Exactly. Public events, photos, appearances. No, kissing. Roman hesitated. Only if absolutely necessary. And I'd get benefits? His smile widened. Full benefits. Health, dental, vision, plus a bonus for the, additional duties. Avery looked around the office. Sleek, sophisticated, and wildly out of her league. But her heart thudded, not with dread but with curiosity. She should say no. This was madness. a billionaire, a fake relationship, a marketing empire. But what if she said yes? She glanced down at her resume, then back up at Roman Vance. All right, she said slowly, extending her hand. You've got yourself an assistant and a fake girlfriend. Roman's grip was warm. Welcome to the madness. 3 days later, Avery found herself standing in the mirrored lobby of Roman's penthouse building, holding two suitcases and a potted plant named Fernanda. She felt like a character in someone else's story. The doorman looked her over with polite suspicion. May I help you, Miss Avery Hart? She said, trying to sound confident. Here to see Mr. Vance. He nodded. Penthouse level. He's expecting you. The elevator ride to the top was smooth and silent. When the doors opened into Roman's apartment, Avery gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline. Every surface gleamed. The furniture looked like it had been curated from luxury magazines. Welcome, Roman said, appearing from a sun-drenched kitchen that was larger than her entire apartment, to your temporary home. This is insane, Avery whispered, setting Fernanda on a glass console. People live like this. Some do, he said, grabbing her bags effortlessly. Come on, I'll show you your room. The guest bedroom was larger than her childhood home. The bed was enormous. The windows looked out over the harbor. Avery sat on the edge and ran her fingers across the silky linens. This is just for show, right? She asked. I'm not actually moving in with you, only until the charity gala next week, Roman replied. Selena will be there. She needs to see that I've moved on. Avery looked up. You're going to tell me about her eventually, right? Roman sighed and leaned against the doorframe. Selena and I dated for 2 years. She's brilliant, successful, and complicated. When we ended things, it wasn't clean. And now she's trying to drag me back for all the wrong reasons. Like power, reputation, money, he said simply. Avery processed that. So, you picked the girl who crashed into your building like a human tornado to fix it. You're real, he said again. And in my world, that's rare. Avery Hart never imagined that agreeing to a job would include lessons in hill walking, wine glass etiquette, and pretending to belong in a world where chandeliers cost more than her annual rent. But here she was, standing in the middle of Roman Vance's penthouse living room with her arms slightly outstretched for balance and a pair of designer stilettos strapped to her feet. These aren't shoes, she muttered, wobbling. They're medieval torture devices with better branding. Roman watched her from the sofa, sipping coffee that probably came from beans harvested by moonlight monks. If you're going to convince high society you're my girlfriend, you'll have to learn to walk like one. Avery gave him a narrow glare. Have you ever worn these? No, but I've seen enough women wear them successfully to offer some tips. That's not the same, Vance. Keep your shoulders back. Heel to toe. Imagine you're gliding. Avery took 3 tentative steps and nearly toppled into the marble coffee table. Gliding, Roman repeated, suppressing a smile. Not charging into battle. I was born for battle, Avery muttered, arms pinwheeling. After 20 minutes of practice, several near falls, and Roman catching her triceps by the waist. Once by her hand, she could finally cross the room without looking like a baby deer in an icy pond. Better, Roman declared. Now let's talk small talk. I can small talk. Rich people small talk. Avery groaned. Do I need to memorize yacht terminology? Not quite. But you can't say I love that movie. You need to say, the cinematography was evocative, especially the director's choice of muted color palettes. Avery blinked. That's exhausting. Tell me about it. They practiced conversation over lunch. A meal Roman insisted on calling a light midday tasting, and Avery quickly realized this whole persona she had to adopt was essentially another language. You didn't talk about binge watching your favorite show. You referenced the independent short film screening at the gallery. You didn't compliment someone's shoes. You noted their Italian craftsmanship and the designer's seasonal theme. It's a performance, she said, poking at a salad that looked like it had been cured more than prepared. Roman gave her a soft look. Yes, and most people in my world never stop performing. Is that why you chose me? She asked, voice low. Because I don't know the script. That's one reason, he said, then looked away. Among others, his tone made her stomach flip unexpectedly. But before she could unpack the feeling, Roman stood and announced it was time for dining etiquette. Let me guess, Avery said, following him into the formal dining room. No elbows on the table, small bites. Don't chug the wine. You'd be surprised how many people still chug. Roman had set up a place setting that looked like it belonged in a museum. Avery counted 6 different forks. This is an ambush, she declared. Nobody needs this many utensils unless they're performing surgery. You start from the outside and work your way in. I'm 24, not 4. I know how to eat. You know how to snack on the couch while watching crime dramas. You don't know how to dine. It was infuriating how often Roman was right. Over the next hour, he taught her how to hold a wine glass by the stem, how to pass the bread basket always counterclockwise, and how to stir soup without creating a tidal wave. I feel like I'm studying for a royal exam, Avery said as she attempted to delicately eat a spoonful of broth. You kind of are. She looked at him, thoughtful. What happens if I mess up? Like, spectacularly. You won't. But if I do, Roman set down his fork and looked at her, really looked at her. Then we handle it together. That's what partners do. The words settled between them like an anchor. Partners. She should have felt comforted. But instead, her heart gave an uneven thump. This was fake, temporary, a contract. But something about the way Roman said together made her feel like maybe it didn't have to be. By the end of the 3rd day, Avery felt like she'd been through a boot camp for debutantes. She could walk in heels mostly, talk about art barely, and survive a 4-course meal without embarrassing herself hopefully. And now, the night of the charity gala was upon her. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in her temporary bedroom, barely recognizing herself. The dress was a deep midnight blue, chosen by Roman's personal stylist. It clung in all the right places, flared at the hem, and shimmered under the light like starlight on water. Her hair was swept into an elegant updo, and her makeup was subtly dramatic, the kind that made her feel like she belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine. Wow, she whispered to herself. There was a knock on the door. Avery, you ready? She opened it and froze. Roman stood there in a black tuxedo, crisp and tailored within an inch of perfection. His hair was styled just so, his jaw freshly shaved, and his stormy eyes widened the moment he saw her. You look, he faltered. You look incredible, like a fake girlfriend, like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. The sincerity in his voice made her breath hitch. Roman offered his arm, and she took it, her fingers trembling slightly against his sleeve. You nervous? He asked as the elevator descended. Terrified? Don't be. You've got this. The ballroom at the Four Seasons looked like something from a dream. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting golden light across the sea of gowns, tuxedos, and glittering champagne flutes. Music played softly, and waiters moved like dancers, balancing trays of hors d'oeuvres. Remember, Roman whispered as they entered. We're madly in love. Avery nodded, madly. To Avery's surprise, the first hour went better than she expected. She smiled, shook hands, complimented jewelry, and even managed to identify a Valentino clutch thanks to her crash course. Roman stayed close, his hand resting gently on her back or brushing her arm, guiding her effortlessly through conversations. You're a natural, he murmured in her ear between introductions. I'm just doing my job, she replied, though her pulse was anything but professional. Then a voice sliced through the crowd like a blade. Roman, darling. They turned. Selena Dupont glided toward them, dressed in crimson silk and confidence. She was all cheekbones, designer perfume, and practiced poise. The room seemed to part for her as she moved. Selena, Roman said, his voice cool. Didn't expect to see you tonight. Of course you did. I never miss the children's benefit. Her eyes landed on Avery. And this must be the assistant I've heard so much about. Girlfriend, Roman corrected firmly, pulling Avery closer. This is Avery Hart. Charmed, I'm sure, Selena said with a sugar-sweet smile. Roman always did have eclectic taste. Avery's spine stiffened, but she forced a smile. Nice to meet you. Roman's told me so much about you. I'm sure he has, Selena said, her tone loaded with implication. Designing is fulfilling. I imagine marketing is practical. Before Avery could retort, Roman spoke up, his voice sharp. Avery has been essential to our latest initiatives. Her creativity is exactly what this company needed. Selena's smile faltered, but only for a second. How wonderful. We should catch up, Roman. Maybe dinner this week. I'm afraid I'm busy. Avery and I have plans every night. Of course, Selena replied tightly. Lovely meeting you, Avery. She turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind a trail of tension. Well, Avery said, after a beat, that was an elegant assassination attempt. You handled it perfectly, Roman said. Selena isn't used to being challenged. She's not going to back off, is she? No, she's not. The rest of the night blurred into soft music, polite laughter, and shared glances. During the auction, Roman bid on a weekend retreat in Napa Valley. When the auctioneer teased, "Do you have someone special to take?" Roman pulled Avery close and kissed her cheek. The most amazing woman in the room, he said into the microphone, and the ballroom erupted in applause. It was for show. All of it was for show. Except, was it? Later, on the terrace, away from the glitz and cameras, Avery shivered in her dress. Roman wordlessly draped his tuxedo jacket over her shoulders. You were incredible tonight, he said. So were you. Their eyes met, the city lights reflecting between them. The buzz of the crowd inside was distant now. It was just the two of them, standing beneath the stars. About this arrangement, Roman said quietly. What about it? I think it's getting more complicated than I planned. Avery's heart stuttered. Complicated how? He reached up, gently brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered at her cheek. She leaned into the touch. Probably, he echoed, but neither of them moved. They stood on the edge of something neither had words for, something that felt frighteningly real. Avery's heart hadn't even made it back inside the ballroom when the illusion shattered. Her hand was still nestled in the crook of Roman's arm. Her cheeks flushed from the warmth of his tuxedo jacket draped around her shoulders. The scent of his cologne still lingered, dark, crisp, intoxicating. Their moment on the terrace had been charged, dangerous, beautiful, and then his phone buzzed. Roman sighed and pulled it from his pocket, his brow furrowing as he stared at the screen. His jaw tensed, the easy warmth in his eyes replaced by steel. What is it? Avery asked, heart sinking. Without a word, Roman turned the phone to face her. On the screen was a photo from inside the Galahim and Avery dancing. The shot was romantic, even dreamlike, her head tilted toward his chest, his hand resting protectively at her back. The kind of photo that could make strangers believe in love. But the caption ruined it. Sebastian's new little friend is so sweet. I'm sure it won't last long. Fake romance something's verging. Avery's stomach dropped. Selena, she whispered. Roman nodded grimly. She's declaring war. Avery stared at the post. The casual cruelty, the condescension masked in sweetness. She's not just trying to get in your head, she's trying to dismantle everything. Your reputation, your company, me. She's playing the long game, Roman muttered. Controlling perception, undermining every step we take. Well, Avery said, fire rising in her chest. Then maybe it's time we played a little offense. The next morning, Avery woke to the sound of Roman's voice echoing from the kitchen, low, sharp, furious. She slipped out of bed, still in one of his oversized t-shirts, and padded barefoot toward the commotion. What do you mean 3 clients pulled out? Roman was saying into his phone, pacing across the gleaming floors. That's not possible. Avery silently made herself a cup of coffee as she watched him from the doorway. His hair was tousled, his dress shirt from last night still half-buttoned, sleeves rolled. Tension bled from every muscle in his back. Find out who's spreading these lies and shut it down, Roman growled before ending the call. He turned and froze when he saw her. 3 contracts canceled overnight. he said quietly, all citing concerns about Ravencrest's financial stability. Avery's eyes narrowed. Do you think I know who's behind it? He said bitterly. As if on cue, Roman's phone rang again. He glanced at the caller ID and his face darkened. Selena, he muttered, then tapped the speaker button. Roman, darling. Her voice purred through the kitchen like expensive perfume. I heard about your little business hiccup. Such a shame when the rumor mill starts spinning. Roman's eyes closed. Did you call to gloat? I called to offer a solution. You know I have connections. I could clear this all up with one phone call. What do you want? Selena, dinner. Just you and me, tonight. For old time's sake. Roman was silent for a long moment. Avery stepped forward, shaking her head vehemently. Don't. He ignored her, voice tight. And if I refuse? Well, Selena said with a smile in her voice. We both know how gossip spreads. Sometimes, it just takes on a life of its own. Roman's grip on the phone tightened. Fine, one dinner, then we're done. Of course, darling. The call ended. Avery stared at him. You can't seriously go. I have no choice, he said quietly. I built this company from nothing. I can't let it burn down. Because I refuse to sit across from my ex for one meal. She's blackmailing you. I know. There has to be another way. Roman looked at her, something like hope flickering behind the storm in his eyes. Do you have one? Avery's jaw tightened. Maybe I do. 6 hours later, the sleek walls of Roman's office were covered in whiteboards, sticky notes, and empty coffee cups. Avery stood in front of a small crowd of men, his business partner Elijah Dane, and a few skeptical PR staffers, sleeves rolled and eyes blazing. This isn't about rumors, she said, laser-focused. It's about narrative. Selena's weaponizing public perception. She's spreading doubt, because it's easy to believe when it comes from someone polished, connected, and vengeful. And what exactly do you propose we do? Elijah asked, arms folded. Put out a press release saying Selena's mean. Avery smirked. We go bigger. She turned her laptop round. On the screen was a sleek, emotional campaign layout titled Ravencrest Unfiltered. People are tired of curated perfection, she said. They want real, authentic, messy. We're going to flood every platform with the human side of Ravencrest. Employee stories, community outreach, behind-the-scenes footage, stories about passion, innovation, resilience, and at the center Roman Vance, not as a billionaire, but as a man who fought to build something meaningful. Roman studied the campaign silently. We go live in 48 hours, Avery said, but only if you're willing to be vulnerable. No polish, no corporate speak, just you. Elijah frowned. That's risky. It's necessary, Roman said suddenly. Let's do it. Avery smiled. Time to fight fire with authenticity. The next 72 hours were chaos. Beautiful, exhilarating chaos. Avery barely slept. She coordinated interviews, drafted post copy, edited video footage, and even held the camera for an impromptu Q&A with Roman in his home office. Business is about people, Roman said into the lens. And we're not perfect, but we're transparent, honest, and we're proud of the work we do. He paused. And I'm proud of the people I do it with. He looked at Avery, then just off camera and her breath caught. The campaign launched with a bang. Within hours, Ravencrest Unfiltered was trending. Clients responded. Former employees commented with gratitude. Influencers picked it up. The public rallied around the idea of a company brave enough to show its flaws and fight with integrity. Then came the final video. Orman, sitting beside Avery. This is Avery Hart, he said, arm around her waist. My assistant, my strategist, and the mind behind everything you've seen this week. I believe in truth, Avery said softly, looking straight into the camera. And I believe in second chances even for companies under attack. This is personal for all of us. And if you're watching this, we hope you'll stand with us. The video went viral. 3 days later, Roman burst into the office, phone in hand. We need to talk, he said, his voice grave. Avery stood. What's wrong? I just got off the phone with Marcus Ward at Atlantic Holdings. He was the source of the rumors. Her stomach clenched. Was it Selena? Not directly, Roman said, sinking into the chair across from her. It was her business manager. Turns out, her fashion empire is collapsing. She's been planting rumors about us to distract from her own implosion. She needs investors. Avery stared at him. So, this wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. Roman nodded. She wanted me back because she needed my money. Avery felt an ache deep in her chest, not for Selena, but for what this kind of desperation did to people. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. Roman exhaled. Nothing. Her actions caught up with her. She made her bed. I won't ruin her, but I won't save her either. He looked at her then, long and hard. But there's something I do need to fix. Roman stood, moving round the desk until he was standing directly in front of her. Avery, he said gently, this all started as a business arrangement. A fake girlfriend to solve a real problem. I remember. But somewhere along the way, he hesitated, then reached for her hand. It stopped being fake for me. Avery's heart flipped, but she kept her expression neutral. You don't have to say this. I know it's been a whirlwind. I want to say it, Roman said firmly. You changed everything. You didn't just save my company. You made me see myself in a new way. And you made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. She swallowed hard. Me too. His eyes lit up. Yeah, I mean, you're ridiculous, she said, laughing softly. You're impossible and stubborn and way too confident. But you also make me feel like I belong in a world I never thought I could step into. Roman's hands cupped her face. You don't just belong, you've rebuilt the damn thing. He kissed her then real, deep, and nothing like the choreographed touches from their charade. It was a confession, a promise, a beginning, and when he pulled back, they were both breathless. So, Avery said, smiling up at him, does this mean we're officially upgrading from fake to real? Roman grinned. Only if you say yes. Yes, she whispered, but on one condition. Anything. I want to keep my job. Roman laughed. Done. Though I can't promise I won't flirt during meetings. I expect it, she said, wrapping her arms round his neck. It's part of your charm. 6 months ago, Avery Hart's idea of success was simply not tripping on her way into a job interview. Now, she stood in Roman Vance's penthouse, their penthouse, adjusting a delicate pendant necklace he'd given her for their 6-month anniversary. The modest diamonds sparkled in the light, elegant and understated, much like the man who had given it to her. Her reflection in the mirror barely resembled the woman who had stumbled into Ravencrest Innovations. The girl who had gotten trapped in a revolving door and nearly cried in an elevator was gone. In her place stood someone self-assured, composed, and radiant in an emerald green dress that hugged her in all the right places. She smoothed down the satin fabric and called out, 2 minutes. In the living room, Roman waited, checking his phone. His tuxedo was as crisp as the first time she'd seen him wear one, but his facetious expression was even softer now, more grounded, happier. Ready? Avery asked, stepping into view. Roman looked up and froze. His eyes darkened with awe. Now I am, he said, walking over and pressing a kiss to her cheek. You look, wow. Avery laughed. I'm going to pretend that's an eloquent billionaire reaction. It's the best I can do while short-circuiting. Tonight was the annual Ravencrest Holiday Gala. Last year, Avery had entered this ballroom pretending to be someone she wasn't. Tonight, she was returning as herself, just more polished. And Roman, he had a surprise planned. The ballroom was once again transformed into a winter wonderland of elegance and opulence. Icicle-inspired chandeliers glittered above, and the scent of white roses filled the air. Champagne flowed freely, and soft jazz floated through the room. Avery floated through conversations with ease. Her official title director of brand engagement wait now, not just because of her connection to Roman, but because she had earned it. The Stone Stories campaign had gone from a temporary PR maneuver to a core part of Ravencrest's identity, and she had spearheaded every phase of it. But tonight, Avery was nervous for an entirely different reason. Roman had been secretive all week, speaking in hints and teasing smiles about an announcement he wanted to make. Something for the team, he'd said. Avery suspected there was more to it than that. As the night wound down, Roman stepped onto the small stage at the center of the ballroom, holding a microphone. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady and warm. "This year has tested us in ways we couldn't have predicted. We faced rumors, setbacks, and uncertainty, but we came through stronger together." His eyes found Avery in the crowd. None of it would have been possible without one person. Murmurs rippled through the room as Roman extended his hand toward her. "Avery Hart," he said, "please join me." Heart pounding, Avery walked up the steps, her heels surprisingly steady despite the emotional weight behind each step. Roman took her hand, his gaze locked with hers. "6 months ago, this woman walked into my life in a cloud of chaos, wearing mismatched shoes and dropping her resume in the lobby." Laughter echoed across the room. She was supposed to be a temporary solution, but she became something permanent. Gasps, soft and stunned, filled the space as Roman dropped to one knee and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Avery Hart," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You agreed to be my fake girlfriend when I was drowning. You saved my company, showed me how to be real again, and reminded me what it means to live. Now, I want to spend every day building something even more meaningful with you." He opened the box. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Avery's cheeks. Round them, the Ravencrest team erupted into cheers and applause. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Of course, yes." Roman stood and slipped the ring onto her finger. It sparkled as brilliantly as the ballroom lights. And when he kissed her, it was the kiss of a man who had nearly lost everything and now had everything that mattered. Avery Van Sesh still wasn't used to the name sat at her desk overlooking Seattle's skyline, flipping through the latest drafts of the Stone Stories quarterly campaign. She smiled at the photos, employees volunteering at shelters, engineers speaking at local schools, new interns documenting their journeys at Ravencrest. The company had changed, but so had she. On her desk was a framed photo from their wedding day. Roman was laughing as Avery, in her white gown, nearly tripped walking down the aisle. Her heels had caught on the rug. Some things never changed. Her phone buzzed with a message from Roman. "Lunch in 5. I have news." When Avery walked into his office, Roman was pacing, a familiar glint of excitement in his eyes. "Good news or bad?" she asked. "The best," he grinned. "Just got off a call with the New York Times." Avery blinked. "Wait, what?" "They want to do a feature story on Ravencrest, on our brand strategy, on us. They want to talk to the power couple behind the brand," he said, quoting with his fingers. Avery groaned. "We're never going to live down the elevator story, are we?" "Never," Roman said, walking over and wrapping his arms round her waist. "But I wouldn't change a single moment, not even the water spill during my interview, especially that," he whispered. "That's when I knew you were different." Avery laughed and leaned into his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of cedar and something uniquely Roman. Outside, the city sparkled. Inside, their phones buzzed with new partnerships, new opportunities, new stories waiting to be told. And in the middle of it all, Avery thought back to the revolving door, the elevator, and the man who had turned her life into the most ridiculous, wonderful fairy tale she could never have scripted herself. Roman twirled her around the office as if they were at a ballroom all over again, their laughter echoing against glass and steel. Somewhere between the chaos and the pretense, they'd found something real. And as far as Avery was concerned, the best chapters of their love story were still waiting to be written.